communities are customers of schools, communities, and DOTs. Anyone who currently uses ArcGIS. Parents and kids can use a free mobile app for routing and reporting.
Questions from the judges?
So how are you going to scale this?
So, since we used ArcGIS and open data, it's pretty easy to scale on other products. They had a similar idea in Utah, but it didn't include, it just included route times and where you can create it. It didn't have the surveys or multilingual features.
It doesn't do routing either, so it's really a bulletin board for routes. But in their first year, they walked 88,000 miles and reduced 91,000 car trips.
Have you done any sort of user testing, or have you gotten some from a potential user to get their reaction?
Well, when we were at City Camp, we talked to a bunch of people, and we got some information. But we are also, next week, we're having a meeting with UNC Safe Route School Institute to talk to them about this idea.
How would you, this goes to scalability, would there be a plan to offer this solution to, Wake County municipalities, local governments, because many of them are looking for safe route to school programs? How would you go about doing that?
Well, it would be pretty easy to add in other counties to this, and once we've got this, it's already up and running, but we're going to touch it up, and I think it does have potential to sell it to counties.
Any ArcGIS customer, so NCDOT, Wake County, Durham, this would be an add-on module used in their education or their public safety modules.
Do I need the microphone, or can you hear me? Petabytes of open data are freely available on the internet right now, and they are gathering dust. Millions of people, just like yourselves, are making decisions every day that can benefit from this data, but the data is not reaching you. The problem is that processing, data science, and design are all high-tech, high-cost activities, and these costs are creating a barrier these costs create a barrier between today and a smarter tomorrow. Our software, Microcensus, is going to break down that barrier. It is an incredibly simple tool that can perform rapid research and reporting on open data sets. Right now, it processes over 2,600 census variables for all 50 states, and in the future, as it matures, we'll add on many more open data sets from all industries and sources. The working app works very simply. You type in an address, and you can use the tools on the map to draw an area, and you select what kind of report you'd like, and then you hit Analyze. The app then gives you a PDF or 8.5 by 11 ready to print. It's that simple. Now, if you think about the data tools that a big business firm might be using, we can liken that to, say, French seafood cuisine. Microcensus, on the other hand, is going to be more like Subway. It's meant for a super wide audience, and it's meant for mass production and consumption. Imagine a citizen who wants to analyze new school districts that seem fishy. All he or she has to do is drop those school districts onto the map, and they get an instant report of whatever census data they're looking for. They can be easily distributed. Microcensus has features that will always be for free. However, we see a lot of opportunity to make a profit. For instance, we can create industry-specific reports and distribute them physically, much like the ones we have here today, and hope that you can get your hands on. Or we can add premium features to the web app. And finally, when the big businesses see how great it is, they're going to want their own custom installations that we will build and maintain for a fee. That's microcensus. It is currently live as an MVP at realsmart.co/microcensus. Go check it out. Also, we are going to be around with these reports. We'd like everyone to get their hands on them and give us any feedback that they might have. When you see it, it might just look like a scrappy MVP today, but be sure that it is going to be the tool that unlocks open data and takes that power and gives it to the people.
Just real quick, why did you focus on census data to start this off with?
Instantly scalable nationwide, and I'm a geospatial developer, so I was familiar with the stuff.
How are you going to let your target audience know it's available and get them to use it?
We're going to have conversations with audiences just like this until we find really great use case verticals, and then once we have those, we're going to market them nationwide.
Just in terms of, you said nationwide, what is your plan for scaling it? I mean, in terms of strategy.
Sure. For instance, we could build a news scanner that's looking for school redistrictings around the country. And the moment that there's a redistricting in the newspapers somewhere, we can manually contact those people with reports for that district.
Would you all, as a follow-up, would you focus on, you said, we're talking census data, like legislative redistricting, government redistricting. Maybe you'd be focusing on that as well.
Totally applicable.
And then if everybody had access to this, what would be your vision for the impact?
Yeah, I want children to do reports with microcensus in school. Whenever someone's learning anything about a new area, they check it out on Google Street View and they check out the microcensus.
Would you also be, final question, as you're looking at the type of census data, would you also be, like if you wanted to track like certain ethnic groups, like, Asians or whatever, would you be able to use the census data and compare what the different populations are around the country? Or
Certainly, we have access to all 2,600 data points that the Census Bureau tracks, currently and longitudinally as well.
Hey, we're here from the NC Food Inspector, which actually started as an existing Code for Durham project that we've been kind of building on top of in terms of functionality. So right now, when you go to a restaurant, at least in North Carolina, you'll see like a sanitation score that'll say, oh, this restaurant got an A and they got in 94. But what does 94 mean? Does that mean that you're going to get sick if you eat there? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to relate what does that score mean to how likely you are to get sick. So you can see the current tools we have are in Wake County. There's a website that's pretty ugly. It's hard to find, but it'll show you, oh, here's a report from this particular restaurant. It gives you all the violations that they got. Or actually, you can go to Yelp and you can see, oh, they got a health inspection score of 97. And then you can see the existing NC Food Inspector, which again just gives you this raw number, which doesn't really mean anything to most people. The data that we're going to be using is the existing data that's actually from the FDA that basically tells counties, well, what should you do for your health inspections? But what we're going to do is we're going to combine that data from the FDA with information from the CDC on risk factors. And there's 5 risk factors. There is food from unsafe sources. So did you use roadkill? Like, hopefully not. There's poor personal hygiene, which means, like, did you wash your hands? There's inadequate cooking, which means your chicken's raw. There's improper holding temperature, which means maybe your fridge is a little bit too warm. And then there's contaminated equipment, which is pretty obvious. That means, like, oh, you accidentally spilled some, like, I don't know, like cleaner into your food. I don't want to eat there. So what our solution is going to do is we're using the existing NC Food Inspector And we are going to put icons in there on just the main home screen that's gonna show you, here are those 5 risk factors. And initially, they'll all be just screened in a little bit so you can tell that they exist. But if this particular restaurant rated badly for this risk factor, it'll be shaded in more. And then you can actually go in and like click through to that particular restaurant, and you'll be able to see, oh, wait a minute, here's the violations, and here's how that risk factor relates to this violation. Going forward, we're starting with Wake County information. We have Durham County information, but we're in the process of relating Durham County's inspections to the CDC risk factors. And we've already found out that both Guilford and Orange County, they already have public data for all their food inspections. So our next step after we've finalized Wake County and we've finalized Durham County is we're going to add Guilford and Orange.
So did you test the icon shading for understanding, awareness, and usability? Can you tell me about that?
We had gone through like a couple versions of the icons and tested them with people where they're the ones that actually came up with some of these risk factors to see, do these make sense to you? And then when you go into like the further screen, it'll actually say, here's, you know, what this icon means. It's kind of hard to show on the home screen.
But did you, like, it sounds like there's a scale, so did you think about from a user perspective or talk to a user about, is this clear that this is a higher risk factor at this particular rating?
I've done a little bit of user testing, but we haven't gone through and done a lot of user testing because we're still actually adding them into the live app.
Just to clarify, like when someone's using this app, what would make it different from like another app out there? I mean, sometimes people look at restaurant inspections on Yelp, or they can get sanitation ratings that are released. Would this be just the data sources you're using, you know, from Wake County to provide more of a, and also based on the factors? Is that how you're differentiating?
We're differentiating based on the fact that we're displaying the risk factors. Nobody else is doing that right now, but there is definitely many sources that show you just the raw, you know, 99 or 84.
Yeah. But this is showing it based on the risk factors. That's what you're.
This is what differentiates us from all the other existing places.
Okay, thank you.
And how complex are the other counties or states in terms of matching the score to the risk factors? You mentioned several other counties are doing the delineation. How is that on a scalable wide? How complex is that going to be?
In terms of North Carolina, it's very scalable. I can't really answer to what it looks like outside of the state. But I can tell you that all the counties in North Carolina use the exact same violation codes. So it's just a matter of us mapping them to these risk factors.
I'm a lucky man. Either my wife doesn't realize that she's too beautiful for me, or it's too late for her to make another choice. I also get the opportunity to give my children the number of opportunities that I didn't as a child, right? Academic, sporting activities, and a variety of other things. And the last thing I get a chance to do is to volunteer in schools, helping families who may not have the same advantages that mine and my family have. We get a chance to read, we get a chance to do a variety of things. This is probably where I saw the issue first, right? Trying to find things to do for kids whose families don't have the same resources that I do, that give them the same advantages. Things like reading to the dog at the library or the NC State Veterinarian Fair, right? So when we started doing a little bit more research, what we realized is that this issue not only affects parents, but triangle residents who have a friend coming in town, they're trying to figure out, hey, what can I do? Or how many times have you heard something that goes on like, man, I wish I had gone to that event, but you realize you just missed it, right? The problem is that it's not easy for us to find these type of things. It's cluttered. It's almost as cluttered as this slide, right? So what we see is just from a cursory look, we saw 8 vendors who are responsible just for municipal organizations alone, trying to figure out what's going on in the triangle. That's not including third party. Then what happens is we looked at 400, we sent out a survey and we spoke to 400 people, and what we found out was, one, the number one way where people find out about things to do in the triangle is through word of mouth. Second is through Google search, and then you turn around is through looking at the municipal events and their websites. But then you have to turn around and you have to figure out, it takes about 5 minutes to figure out, does this event match my schedule? Does it matter? Does it meet what I'm looking for? Does it meet my criteria? Our solution is simple. Combine them all. One website where you combine all triangle and third-party events, you're able to turn around and allow users to search on the criteria that's important to them: time, cost, location, event, a variety of things. We use every technology to say, hey, if you're close to a place, why not go there? And last, we allow users to log in to get notifications. Hey, you know this event that you're going to has changed. By the way, here's another recommendation based on things that you like. And last, again, as with technology, where we can say, there's something going on that you didn't plan for, we didn't recommend, but since you're in the area, it may be good. Where are we, right? So we actually have an early adopter customer who's actually paid. We wrote out the MVP. And so we're actually getting learning from them, and it's a school and their 300 parents. We are this close to finalizing bringing in APIs, RSS feeds from 5 municipal organizations, including libraries, museums, and even talking to third parties. And we're also talking to bringing on additional customers. Our revenue model is freemium. Right now, we're going to charge nothing to allow people to put their activities and websites in, their activities and events in, and we'll figure out, one, how people are using it, and go from there.
What's your plan to grow your customer base?
So originally what we're going to do is we're going to grow by eyeballs first, right? And so we are actually going to display this. It'll be a free website. Wake County has already agreed to tweet it out once we go live, and so has Raleigh. And then going to talk to some of the other municipal organizations. Our goal is to make sure that we understand the model and get it right in the triangle, and then we can expand it to other cities, states, municipalities. Because again, it's just using their publicly available data and allowing third parties to go in and put their information in also.
You've obviously had some success working with Wake County, one of the state's largest counties, and you said Raleigh is one of the state's largest cities. But as you go out there and talk to local governments, have they been responsive to how this differs from their current promotional, like town of Morrisville, town of Cary, send emails out and newsletters? What's your differentiator?
So it depends on the size of the municipality, right? Some are bigger and smaller than the other ones, but all of them are always trying to figure out how can we do it. They do it through Facebook, they do it through newsletters, but what happens is that they aren't doing it as well as they can, because again, it takes a number of clicks to find that event. So as a parent, if I go and find soccer, does this soccer match my schedule? Does it also, can I find gymnastics that also matches my schedule for my daughter? And so by being able to put in criteria like time, cost, location, and get it across all vendors, it allows residents and everything the opportunity to see it a lot faster and a lot quicker.
Thank you.
And what did your test users say in terms of the ease of understanding searching the data, the way the data was presented? Is it accessible? What were some of your use cases?
So right now we're talking with parents and schools. They like it. They're actually asked for a number of enhancements and changes, which we're about to roll out in our next MVP.
Virtual Raleigh. That domain is taken, so is SimCity, so maybe Sim Raleigh, I don't know. But that's the idea is, how's this advanced?
Right here. Right here. There's some people.
On the right.
There we go. The overview of it is attempting to centralize much of the open data for Raleigh as possible, organize it in a 3D model, easily compared and explored. This would be valuable to architects, developers, city planners, students, anyone interested in development and data about the city. wasn't quite sure how to go about doing the, how to turn it into a business, but what made sense to me would be free to most people, or a minimal subscription fee, slightly more for more advanced features, and then a custom solution for anybody who was interested in developing a portion of the city in more detail. We've got a good start on it. It's all created with open data, mostly from the WakeGov site. I also used OpenStreetMap and the Raleigh. But starting with the topography, you can view it in height map, contours, street map, or the bottom's covered. But that's the satellite, obviously, which really came out the worst. You can filter the buildings by square footage, by zoning, by height, by footprint, by setback. This is a real primitive looking model, but all the buildings would be textured, real time of day analysis of everything. Traffic, what wasn't put on here, but basically a simulation of the whole city. And this next slide shows through the course of the day. It currently supports real-time lighting, real-time sun, shadows, everything else. I can scale that with the seasons. Like I say, I'm just getting started, so there aren't any trees or much of the detail still needs to be filled in. That would be a process, but that's it in a nutshell. One second slide.
Those are damn good. So I'm not a developer, so can you help me understand, if I was a developer target customer, why would I need this?
Sure, there might be a vacant lot, and you need to see what the zoning is in the area. Getting that zoning changed is the process. You can experiment with different height buildings on site. The architects want to see what buildings nearby would look like. Once it gets built, or once the project gets started, I can develop the model throughout the course of the project.
Would you see it being used more by developers, or would it be like city planning staffs, a mixture of both, or?
Mixture of both.
And what data source are you going to use to put the trees in?
There's one on available on WakeGov. It's greenery, or green space, foliage. I forget what it's called exactly.
Good.
One of them,
Okay.
something I didn't mention was to combine data sets. I had been using bitmaps, but they're pretty heavy, so I'm trying to use vertices and multiply the colors. So with overlapping data, you can highlight what you're looking for.
Hello everyone, we're Wake Forest Open Data and I'm Anita. I would like to introduce you to Suzanne. Suzanne is a software developer from the town of Wake Forest. She would like to bring her skills into the community to transform open data into open knowledge. Suzanne is only one of 37,000 people from the town of Wake Forest. 37,000 possible users of an open data portal, accessing data, educating themselves, and build cool applications. Unfortunately, the town of Wake Forest doesn't have an open data portal. Luckily for us, Suzanne has a lot of great ideas, and she's also a member of this group.
So, I had the idea for an open data portal for Wake Forest at City Campus, Data Jam, turns out, just like many communities across the state, Raleigh, Charlotte, Wake Forest, in those communities, citizens have built relevant applications to do things like visualize the budget, so citizens can see actually physically where money in their community is being spent. At the end of Data Jam, we had a minimum viable prototype. Our next step was to begin a series of vital conversations. We presented our prototype to the city, to the town of Wake Forest. We shared it with a GIS analyst, Eric John, and the town IT director, Tom LaBarge. They liked what they saw. The feedback was positive. They liked our intent, they liked our use of S3 platform, and they expressed interest in eventually maintaining the portal. Through conversations, we've begun the process of creating a civic partnership between the town and its citizens.
All right, in order to present a visually and functionally convincing open data pool at the NT Datapalooza Finale, as well as creating a roadmap strategy for the conversation and the future collaboration with the town, we need a team with many talents. So I'd like to introduce you to the team really fast. I'm Annika, I'm the brain of the group. I'm responsible for managing the people on the project. We have Suzanne. Suzanne is the link to the technologists of S3, as well as the town of Wake Forest. And then we have our tech team, Sophia. Elaine, she can't be here today because she's affected by Hurricane Matthew, but we're looking forward to have her on board if we make it to the finale. Together we can build a solution for 37,000 people and build Wake Forest open data quality. Thanks for listening.
What happens if you don't do it?
Don't do what?
Or get the town to pursue the open data
So,
portal?
I suppose there are other avenues. One support activity that I'm exploring along the way is to create a Code for Wake Forest, Code for America Brigade. That's one possibility. The citizens could take it over, but it really would be much more effective if the town used the portal as its repository for public open data, and they have said they're on board with that.
When they say on their board, when they're on board, would they be willing to, pay you? Would they buy the portal, pay for it out of their budget, or how would you manage it and support it for the town, or?
So, you ask a good question, it delves in the details. They already use the S3 platform and S3 technology, so adding this on as part of what they already do would not be an additional cost. They cannot support it this year because it's not something they have in their budget for their staff, but they have it online for next year.
And just as a quick follow-up, are you limited in the first year or so just on Wake Forest? And if it's successful and they do bite on this, would you plan to move it to other cities that are sort of looking at open data but don't really know how to get the portals up?
So any good citizen, we'd be willing to share, of course, and help any other city open up a portal. Most cities have their own portal. Cary, Raleigh, Durham, Morrisville, they already have their own portals going.
I can't see the clock, so I don't know how much time we have. I can see the reflection in the window, but you move the clock. How many data sources are you finding for Wake Forest?
So right now we have over 20 data sets, and we're going to go back. One of the next steps also is do a deep dive and make sure we're getting all the relevant data sets. And we're going to consult with the town of Wake Forest to make sure that any data sets that they know about that they really have the itch to put out there in public, make sure we have those also.
Thank you.
Suppose we have a tornado warning right here, right now. Well, first off, you don't know where it is. You don't know for sure if it's Raleigh or Zebulon or Creedmoor. You don't know the location. You have to go check. The Weather Service makes that clear in a polygon, but you have to get that on the internet. Then the next problem is nobody in this room knows where to shelter in this building. Nobody has a clue. So where's the safe place to go? Enter the Raspberry Pi weather radio. It receives the transmission from NOAA weather radio, which tells it of a tornado warning, but that transmission only includes the county codes. It does not include the specific data about the polygon that specifies a more specific area, not beholden to political boundaries. It also can produce a site-specific sheltering instruction, so we would have some idea what we might ought to do from here. Or at a workplace, or some other place where you don't have tornado drills, you don't have very often that sort of thing. You want to improve sheltering compliance. You want to reduce unnecessary sheltering. So you want to alert exactly when you have tornado warning at specifically your location. Here's some of that open data. You get the polygon from the National Weather Service. They provide it on the website, on the text stuff. You can go get the text messages if you just go click through from the location. And it'll give you the latitude and longitude for all those things. You know the latitude and longitude of your installed device. That's easy enough. And then you can see the polygon is smaller than the county boundary in this situation. Every once in a while it's bigger, but usually it's smaller. And then this area fell out of the polygon after just a few minutes. So that's how that changes. There's our solution. We have exactly one, and it works. So come at 4:30, I'll be over in 305B. That'll be great. And I'll demo it there. This is our market. Our market here is the red part and the orange part, and this here shopping center. That's a tornado that hit Huntsville, Alabama in 1989, November 11th and November 15th. I will never forget that because I had to drive through that every day. It tore up my church, it tore up my brother's school. That's why I care about this stuff. And all the people in this shopping center needed to know, and needed to know exactly where to shelter. So, help us do it. This is our business plan. We want to start with locally owned places and move on to
Jim Scarborough, could you talk about cost and around, do you see people building this themselves, or do you see opportunity in you providing the hardware? And
both. So the device itself, as you've seen in that prototype, is about $130. We found a way last night, thanks to the right connections, to reduce the cost by about $40. So, yay. And then the next thing is when we sell one of these things, we'll mark it up a little bit, but we'll also sell support with it. So it will come with support to keep the software updated and keep it running.
what's the range of the device? Like if I were a customer, do I need to install multiple in certain locations?
It depends on your infrastructure. And in this facility, you might want one, you might want 20, I don't know.
Are you selling to businesses and organizations?
Right. So
or?
the first customer will, more than likely, bottom line here, be a gymnasium that does gymnastics. And they need to shelter because they've got one of these big roof spans. Be sure to shelter when the storm's bad.
Are you saying that the problem that you're trying to solve is when you give the Huntsville example, that by this kind of an app, people would know more in advance where to go shelter, so if you didn't, they would just, be there and it would just...
Well, there are three problems. You have to know the location of the warning, you have to know that you're within that location, and you have to know where to shelter in your location. So if you don't go to tornado drills at the gym, this will tell you where to go. But it also monitors the weather and checks for you to find out if you're in that location.
Okay.
What if you've never been given tornado training? Because I know some people have never done a tornado drill.
If it says go to the stairwells, that's easy enough. You go to the stairwells, and then hopefully you've got people to help there. It depends on how many people.
And how many gyms are there in that area? That's your target market?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch.
So hello, I'm Jeremy with the NC School Monitor. My colleagues here, David, and are here. How many of you all hear in the news that your school got an A or a B or an F, or that the student achievement in Raleigh this year was up or down or back or forth, and you wonder a little bit more about the context of it. So if you want to know what the context is, you can go visit this website or that website, or hopefully if you have Flash, you might go into the new SAS website. You look at how things changed over the last couple of years, see what your school is doing, what your district is doing. If you want to compare it to others, you should get a pencil and paper and a large Excel file and start reading through it. If you want to see how it's changing over time, go visit 2 or 3 of these sites and write down for a couple of years. And if you really want to go look at it and say, is there some measure of equity in how the different students are performing, you go into a huge Excel file and dig into that for a little while to understand if different ethnicities or different economic advantages are doing well in your school or not doing well in your school. So from an open data perspective, there's lots of open data out there to try to understand this. The North Carolina Department of Instruction has a lot of data they're required to give out. Right now, they're required to distribute it, but they're not really required to distribute it in a very friendly way. So they have different sites that change year to year to year, but they're not very modern, not very usable. There's also SAT results. Then you can go to the national level. A lot of this information, North Carolina is very rich in it, but nationally a lot of this is available nationwide, and you can get some data there. And then it's more about just student achievement. If you got grade 5 on the EOG or grade 1 on the EOG, there's how well the teachers are satisfied with the schools, what the funding is in the schools. There's a lot of rich information that you can provide about the school systems to help drive more educated discussion about schools. So far, we've done initial analysis of school performance in classes over time. It's actually quite interesting work to try to pull the data together. It was fairly straightforward. The infrastructure there is not that hard, but then to actually look at the data and try to understand it. Unfortunately, we have teammates who have statistical background and then an actuarial background to really look at it and make sure that the conclusions we're drawing and helping our users draw are actually valid ones. We began investigating some inferential statistical models to try to understand. There's a lot of discussion out there what drives school performance as the data starts to support it. Is that something we can share with the users? And then also some literature review on achievement gap analysis for student achievement. We're exploring right now different visualization approaches. The top one is one of our visualization approaches where you can group and compare how your school for the 3 bars on this side compared to your district for the 3 bars in the middle to the overall state for the 3 bars on the far side over 3 consecutive years. This right now would be very difficult to do with the current available information. And then down below is a potential visualization. If you take this for all of the U.S., this is for economic inequality, but you can also talk about educational equality or effectiveness.
So can you just give me a use case if I'm a parent?
So actually, this is how I got started. I'm part of the Code for Durham, NC School, Durham School Navigator. We're navigating the schools, and this is a question that comes up. So when you compare your school, is it getting better over time? Is it getting worse over time? How does it compare to your other school options? Like if you want to live in X location or Y and Z locations, and you're comparing those schools. And so it's an adjunct there, but it's an area that's got a lot of information, a lot of discussion about the best way to drive it forward.
I mean, how would this differ from, how would this differ from going to like the state school of instruction, Department of Instruction website, or reading a report? I mean, is this that you're actually getting real-time data?
So it's not just real-time data; it's user-friendly. You can open up. You can open up on your iDevice and actually use it. And you can compare year to year to year, which is really difficult to do on the state websites.
Yeah, that is just easier to use, and so you can get better information that way.
And then how do you want to pay for it and continue the work and scale it and all that jazz?
So this is part of the Code for Durham, which is Brigade of Code for America. And so I've had some discussions about other code brigades across North Carolina. I think it's an open platform. We're going to use the money to help drive the development of it in this environment, but then it's also going to be open so that anybody in Code for America organization or anybody can go to GitHub and actually pull it down and re-implement it if necessary. But I think in North Carolina, we're taking a North Carolina-wide approach, but this can move to all the other about 51 or 52 different educational, mostly states or District of Columbia, Puerto Rico. They can all do this type of thing, and then mash in data that's more relevant to their specific location as well.
Are you seeing any developer interest from outside of North Carolina for this?
I don't have the network there to really drive that. I did have a brief discussion at the city camp with Jen Palka, and she said it is something that Code for America has some interest in, although I think it's gonna take it to drive it here locally first and then try to look at it nationwide.
So, first, let's give a big round of applause. For the 6 teams who were at Data Jam, you guys have had a really productive 5.5 weeks. The 2 new teams moved out here to pitch. Really exciting to see you do that, so thank you. Judge is going to deliberate. We're going to announce the 3 finalists at the closing at 5:20 tonight, and then we'll send something out. We'll tweet it. If you're interested on social media, I know that Datapalooza and Exit Event have been busy posting about it with some video clips, and then we've been got some live streaming that we'll put out later as well. Just a reminder, please sign up for Datapalooza. Feel free to share it with your networks at NC Datapalooza is our Twitter handle, early bird, and the discount code for Monday. Thanks so much, everybody.